Alright guys, today we're going to talk about the top 10 films of 2021 in my opinion. This year has been a really great year for films, even though a lot of people probably still haven't gone out to the theaters. But I think all in all, 2021 is a great year for films. Coming in at number 10, I have Paul Thomas Anderson's new film, Licorice Pizza. I thought it was a great comedy and a kind of a big adventure story for Paul Thomas Anderson. Coming off of him usually doing a lot of very serious dramas, this one was very much more lighthearted, and you could definitely sense that from the storytelling and the pacing of the movie. And it also goes in different directions that you don't expect at times. Also great because of the performances by Alana Haim and also Philip Seymour Hoffman's son. I thought were both really great in it. All in all, I thought it was a really great movie by Paul Thomas Anderson, already a great filmmaker, and I think you guys should go check out Licorice Pizza. Number 9, I have Joanna Hogg's sequel to her first film, The Souvenir. In this case, I have the number 9, The Souvenir Part 2, which I thought was really great and definitely a step up, I think, for me from the first one. I enjoyed the first one, but the relationship between the main character in the film and the relationship between the boyfriend wasn't really my favorite. I thought that the main character was too naive at points, but I think that's also a reflection of Joanna Hogg at her time there. The movie, the second part, focused mainly on the director, Joanna Hogg, and her relationship to filming and kind of her career and what it's like to be in charge of a set, and it just felt like a great movie about filmmaking that wasn't all about filmmaking, if that makes sense. I love the scenes with the crew members, and just all that entire interaction was very relatable, especially working with kind of more student films and that relationship and how that works. And then seeing it on a bigger scale, and also there was just a great ending to the movie. I just really enjoyed The Souvenir Part 2, and you guys should go check it out. At number 8, I have Chloe Zhao's Nomadland, a movie that was really released in 2020 but was first nationally released on Hulu, I saw in February 2021, so that's why I have it on this list along with another movie that came out maybe a little bit earlier in 20 or a little bit later in 2020 and is now in 2021 widely released. I think it's one of the best in terms of cinematography I've seen at all this whole year, and it's definitely a very interesting story about Frances McDormand and her journey as a nomad in America and the Midwest, and how beautifully photographed that is by Chloe Zhao. That was a really interesting movie, seeing what different stories people had throughout traveling in vans and just kind of these different perspectives on life. Really enjoyed it for that reason. A big draw for me was the cinematography, national kind of geographic aspect, and the nature aspect of this film movie is just beautiful to watch. Number 7, I have a Marvel movie, and it's not the one that maybe you guys are thinking about, but I have Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. For me, this one was the best movie from Marvel this year. A tale we haven't seen before, and definitely bringing a new character into the MCU, which I really enjoyed. The movie for me was the action. It is probably the best, if not one of the best, action movies this year, but also in terms of the MCU, I think it might be in the top 3 when it comes to just how well it's shot in terms of the action. The hand-to-hand combat scenes throughout the movie are great. The bus scene, just all the fight scenes in this movie are really great and up to par with some of the best action movies this year. I really enjoyed also the fantasy element towards the ending of this movie, if you guys know what I'm talking about. I just love the kind of world building that this movie did. I know a lot of people are going to probably have Spider-Man on their top 10, but for me, I have Shang-Chi. The comedy was there, but it wasn't at times overbearing as much as I thought. Maybe it was a little bit more in Spider-Man at times. It was a little bit too much. It took away from the seriousness of the movie. Shang-Chi really did it really well when it came to including the action and the serious moments and the beats when it needed to be there. At number 6, I have Lee Isaac Chung's Minari. In this case, this is also one of those cases in which a movie that came out last year but then was fully released this year, and I got the chance to see it on Amazon. I found this movie to be very relatable to me in my life and kind of my family as a whole, in terms of kind of being raised in a more religious household and kind of those elements of also an immigrant family coming to America. And those elements kind of made it more relatable for me, and that's why I have it so high on my list at number 6. Performances were great, especially the wife and also Stephen Yeun's character as a father. I thought that David was hilarious at a bunch of points in the film. The grandma was also hilarious and really great. I just thought all the performances were really great in this movie, and the drama aspect was there. It was very touching and just was very relatable to me and my family coming from a more immigrant household. At number 5, I have Sam Levinson's Malcolm and Marie. This might be a controversial pick for a lot of people, considering that a good amount didn't like this film and some people really did. But I think for me, I really enjoyed this film mainly because of obviously the great performances by Zendaya and John David Washington in this movie. And I love the cinematography of the black and white when it came to this movie as well. I thought it was really interesting how the film topics were handled in this movie, especially when it comes to race and what it means to be a really great director and filmmaker when it comes to not being white and not being obviously more in the mainstream media as well. Topics that I thought were really interesting that were brought up when it came to this movie, along with the great performances with Zendaya and John David Washington. As a upcoming filmmaker, I just thought they were just really interesting and kind of relatable subjects about what it means to be a creator now especially, and the different point of views when it came to that. Let me know what you guys thought about this film. This is probably my most controversial one on this list, but I really enjoyed Malcolm and Marie. For a film, after all the controversy about Warner Brothers and Zack Snyder, I had Zack Snyder's Justice League. I'm one of the people that really enjoyed this movie. I just thought it was definitely a big step up from the previous Justice League, and Zack Snyder got his just due to finally make it his way. Even though it was 4 hours, I went through the whole 4 hours and I was really enjoying it. The character development of Cyborg was there finally. We got to see great elements of the Flash used, and I'm more of a DC guy myself, so to see this team done really well was a great sight to see, especially towards the end when the whole fighting happens. Post-credit scene almost of what a future could be if he was going to do the Injustice, which I thought was really interesting, and I would like to see that more, especially since Marvel is doing kind of their more upbeat of the superhero genre. I would like to see DC take a little bit more of a darker tone, and I think that's what Zack Snyder did with this movie. Manhunter and certain characters popping up was a good amount of fan service that wasn't overbearing as well, and was just really great to see. At number 3, I have Guy Ritchie's Wrath of Man. For me, Guy Ritchie has been now back-to-back, has created 2 films that I have in my top 10 with The Gentleman and now Wrath of Man. I really enjoyed the storytelling in this movie, the twists and turns that took towards almost the end of the movie, of all the characters, how interesting they were, and how dark this movie was compared to kind of his other movies. The action sequences were really well done. I enjoyed Jason Statham's performance as H. Ritchie's, when he does these kind of movies, I think this is what he does best. His best work when it comes to bringing in the British humor as well as doing the action sequences and the storytelling and bringing out great characters to remember. That's kind of what he's best and known for doing nowadays. But I can't wait for his next film, which is coming out pretty soon in January, I believe. And just can't wait for his next project. At number 2, I have Dune by Denis Villeneuve. I've been waiting for this movie for a while now. We finally got to see Dune I got to see it on IMAX as well, which is really great. This was the first time for screening. I really recommend you guys go see it in IMAX as well. Great cinematography in it. I don't think this is the best considering what he's done with Roger Deakins, but some great cinematography with Greg Fraser. As great, the world building was my favorite aspect of this movie. Just the parts of the Atreides and the family and the wars and everything about the costumes, the designs, all of that I loved from this movie. And that's something that I really enjoy and hope to see more of in Dune Part 2 when it comes out in 2023. I really enjoy Denis Villeneuve's directing, one of the best filmmakers working right now, creating great sci-fi stories in one of my favorite genres. With Dune, there was also just great performances across the board with Timothy Chalamet as the main character, as Paul Atreides. Just a great cast. Rebecca Ferguson, I think, was the best in terms of the acting. Continuing to do great work after great work. I can't wait to see what he does with Part 2. One I have, which might be a surprise to people if they haven't really seen it, but I have One Night in Miami, directed by Regina King as her future debut. I figured out that it was also a play beforehand, but it was mainly the writing in this movie that really just drew to me and also just kept me invested in this whole movie. The characters are really great. All the performances were great. I just love when characters have these deep discussions within movies. It also transcends cinema and just makes people even talk about it even further and all the racial topics and everything that's going on, especially in 2021. The bits and pieces of history that were thrown in there and everything that happened during that time period was really interesting and really well done by Regina King. The whole story kind of takes place in one whole room, essentially, one whole building. And that was really interesting to see her do that with just 4 characters. I wanted to know even more about all these people and historical figures in life, so that's why I have it at number 1 on my list, and I hope you guys check out One Night in Miami. So guys, that was my top 10 list of 2021, my 10 favorite films that came out this year. There were a lot of great films that came out this year that just couldn't make it on this list. Saw a lot of them, especially during the film festivals in New York. Let me know what you guys had as your top 10 films of 2021. Let me know which ones were your favorite, which ones you might have not liked as much, which ones you thought were overhyped. Thank you guys for watching and have a good one.